The first sign of trouble wasn't a letter. It was the sound. A deep growl that rattled the windows and rolled to the quiet land my family had owned for generations. When I stepped onto the porch, I saw a yellow backhoe and a crew in orange vests standing exactly where my father's old fence had been. Except the fence was gone. Posts ripped from the ground. Wire coiled like a dead snake. My stomach turned. This was my land, the same 4 acres my father had built his life on after returning from the war. I marched toward them. A woman stepped forward, her designer boots sinking in the dirt, holding a clipboard like a shield. "Can I help you?" she asked, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This is private property." I told her. "Actually," she said, "this parcel is now considered common ground. It was rezoned years ago. My name is Ray Matt. I'd paid taxes on this land for decades. The deed was locked in a bank downtown. There was no rezoning, no donation, no agreement. But she spoke like it was settled law. Her name was Carol Dopkins, president of the Creekside Commons HOA. When I told her she had the wrong property, she sighed. "I understand this can be confusing for someone your age. If you check the county records, you'll see the new plat." Then she hit me with the final blow. "You have 60 days to vacate." That word, vacate, echoed in my head. Leave the only home I'd ever known, the one my wife and I built our lives around. I went to their next public meeting, hoping to clear things up. Instead, they mocked me. Carol and her board of neatly dressed neighbors laughed when I tried to show my deed and tax bills. "Old paper deeds get replaced all the time," one man said. Someone else muttered, "He's just after a payout." Humiliation burned through me. I left that meeting shaking. I was 68, a widower, a veteran, and they were stealing the last piece of my family's history. But I wasn't ready to give up. I met a local lawyer. He looked through my documents and frowned. "You've got a case," he said, "but they buried the paper trail under digital records. It'll take money to fight them." Money I didn't have. Meanwhile, the sound of hammers and saws filled the air as they began building condos on my soil. My pond started to dry up after their crew broke my water line. My property turned into a construction zone. That's when I called an old Army friend, Glenn Torres, a retired city engineer. We compared my father's paper survey from 1971 with the county's digital map. Glenn's brow furrowed. "They're using a flawed overlay," he said. "When the golf course project failed 15 years ago, the map should have been reverted. They just left it. For the first time in months, I felt hope. But the next day, a sheriff's deputy delivered an injunction. I was forbidden from interfering with construction. In other words, I was legally banned from stepping onto my own land. Behind the deputy, Carol watched, smirking from her SUV. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bulldozers sat under the moonlight like tombstones. I walked out to the porch and whispered to my late father, "This isn't over." Glenn helped me quietly. He knew an old surveyor named Peterson who still worked part-time. We met in a small-town cafe, and I paid him cash to search historical records. Days later, Peterson called. "Ray, I found your grandfather's original survey. It mentions an iron pin buried near the birch trees on the northwest corner. If that marker's still there, their map is a lie." That evening, Glenn and I crept out with a magnetic locator. For nearly an hour, we swept the ground until, thunk, we dug 6 inches down and found a rusted iron pin, engraved with single letter, M for Matt. Proof. Glenn said, "We've got the physical truth. Now we need the paper to back it." That's when I remember my father's old military footlocker in the attic. Inside, under faded uniforms, we found a manila envelope labeled property. Inside was everything: the 1971 notarized deed, the tax stamps, and my father's signature beside the county seal, the root of title. The next morning, I went to the courthouse. The clerk rolled her eyes when I asked for the old plat book, but when I opened it, there it was, my deed, clean and unbroken. No sale, no donation, no lien. My family still legally owned the land. I sat there trembling, not with fear, but with quiet fury. Carol and her HOA had built everything on a digital lie. I could have stopped them right then, called the sheriff. "Shut it all down." But as I stared at the page, a colder plan took shape. Let them build, I thought. Let them pour every foundation, every wall. Let them invest everything in land that was still mine. They had laughed at me once. They wouldn't be laughing for long. Months passed. I kept my secret close. The condos rose fast, 18 bright, identical boxes swallowing my view. I didn't interfere, didn't shout. I just watched. Carol Dobkins strutted across my land like a queen, giving interviews and calling it progress. Let her talk, I thought. Every nail they hammered was another mistake in her coffin. To the workers, I wasn't an enemy. I left cold water at the end of my driveway every morning. Eventually, they started nodding, chatting, even laughing with me. I learned their names, their schedules, their companies. One foreman, Mike, mentioned that the HOA was struggling to get title insurance. "Funny thing," he said, "the bank's nervous because technically the HOA doesn't own the dirt under these condos." He chuckled, not realizing he'd just confirmed everything I already knew. I contacted a retired judge I once knew, Arthur Vance. He'd fought with the same HOA years earlier. When I told him the whole story, he went silent for a moment, then said, "Ray, what they did sounds like constructive fraud. They built on land they never legally owned." He examined my papers and smiled. "The builder can be held liable too. Their contract is void if the HOA's claim is fake. That means everyone, contractors, buyers, are exposed." It was a chain reaction waiting to happen. Following the judge's advice, I visited 2 families who had already paid deposits on the condos. I showed them my deed, my survey, the photo of the iron pin with my family's initial. "Just have your lawyer check the HOA's title," I told them. Panic flashed in their eyes. I knew word would spread, and it did. A week later, at my daughter Sarah's engagement party, she noticed how distant I'd become. "Dad, are you okay? You seem somewhere else." I wanted to tell her everything, that her old man wasn't beaten but quietly winning. Instead, I smiled and said everything would be sorted out soon. It was almost time. The HOA planned their big celebration, the grand ribbon cutting of Creekside Commons Phase 3. A local news crew was coming. Carol wanted the world to see her triumph. 2 days before that event, I drove to the courthouse with Judge Vance's help and filed a quiet title suit, a legal motion that settles ownership once and for all. Attached was my father's original 1971 deed. The paper bomb was now ticking. The next morning, Carol's lawyer called me in a panic. "Mr. Matt, there's been a misunderstanding," he stammered. "My client are prepared to offer you a generous settlement. Name your price." I let him finish, then said, "See you in court." The lawsuit leaked to the press. The same reporter who had filmed Carol's speeches called for comment. I didn't say much, just sent her a photo of the iron pin with a caption, "You can't digitize the truth." Carol's mask began to crack. In desperation, she reached out to Glenn, not realizing he was my ally. She offered him $5,000 to confirm that the digital plat was correct. What she didn't know was that Glenn was recording the call. Her voice on tape was poison. "Just make the old deed go away. Nobody needs to see that again." The day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, buyers, builders, even county officials. Carol sat stiff at the front, her confidence gone. Her lawyer began with a rehearsed speech about modernization and misplaced nostalgia. Then it was my turn. I stood alone, representing myself. From a simple paper bag, I pulled the old manila envelope and unfolded my father's deed. The embossed county seal gleamed faintly under the lights. "Your Honor," I said, "this is the original deed. It has never been sold, transferred, or surrendered." The room went silent. Then I placed Glenn's recorder on the table and pressed play. Carol's voice filled the courtroom. "Just make the old deed go away." The judge's gavel slammed down. The verdict was swift and absolute. The HOA's digital plat map was declared invalid. My deed stood. Every condo they built, all 18, was now legally mine. The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled, cameras flashed, and Carol sat frozen as deputies approached her. The district attorney had already issued a warrant for bribery. She was handcuffed right outside the courtroom. mascara running, her career in ruins. But I wasn't celebrating. Outside, I met the families who had bought those condos. "What's going to happen to us?" one young father asked. They'd sold their old homes and had nowhere to go. I told them, "You can stay. I'll rent them month to month for cheap, but no HOA, no rules, and you'll help restore the land you live on." They agreed. The paper ran the headline, "Veteran wins back family land, offers grace instead of revenge." The story went viral. People called it poetic justice. My small fight became a symbol for homeowners everywhere. 3 months later, the HOA filed for bankruptcy. Creekside Commons dissolved. Neighbors started painting their mailboxes bright colors, putting up basketball hoops, planting gardens. The air felt freer. As for Carol, she pleaded guilty, paid a fine, and tried to smear me online, but her obsession destroyed her again. A camera caught her trespassing at night, measuring fence posts. She was arrested, this time for violating probation. My case changed more than one life. The county passed a new ordinance requiring surveyors to verify original paper deeds before approving digital plats. They called it the Matt Clause. Now, every other Saturday, my new neighbors and I worked together to heal the land, replanting trees, fixing fences, cleaning the pond. Even the old construction foreman, Mike, shows up to help. I built a wooden sign by the pond, Linda's Bend, named for my late wife. When I sit there at sunset with my daughter and her fiancé, the geese gliding across the water, everything feels right again. Sarah asked, "Are you happy now, Dad?" I looked over the land, my land, once stolen, now restored. "Happy isn't the word," I said. "It's balanced. You can bury the truth under maps, money, and lies. But sooner or later, it rises, stronger than concrete. And as the sun dipped low, I knew my father would be proud.